What's up guys, it's Storm here, back for another One Piece video. In the One Piece world, by coincidence or on purpose, there exists two blonde Yonko commanders that can fly and use blue flames as weapons. Today we're going to see which one of them would actually win in a fight. You all saw the title of this video, we're talking about Sanji versus Marco. Let's start off with Sanji. All of his relevant scaling is within Onigashima and based on his fight with Queen. Since he is Sanji's main opponent during the raid, I'll talk a little bit about Queen first. Queen, despite being weaker than King, has a few times where her strength is actually praised. After Luffy loses his sea stone cuffs, he throws a punch at Queen. A base Queen is able to catch this punch and casually throw Luffy away. Later on, likely based on this whole interaction, Luffy says fighting this base Queen will prove much more exciting than fighting the headliners left behind at Udon Prison. Queen was also able to knock out Olin with his Brachio Bomber and recover from her attacks relatively quickly. I know there are some people who have different interpretations of that scene with Big Mom and Queen, so I'll just leave it at that. The final one I want to talk about is when Zoro tries to get to the rooftop during the raid. Zoro says that neither route to get there will be simple, which is used to praise both King and Queen respectively. Queen is also the third strongest among the Beast Pirates due to seemingly having superiority over Jack. Alright, now we can actually get into Sanji's performance against Queen. Sanji is shown on multiple occasions to be capable of damaging Queen and even drawing blood from him while in his hybrid and full Zoan form. Sanji first shows up in order to save Chopper and kicks Zoan form Queen so hard he spins like a goddamn helicopter. After getting hit by another Diable Jambe attack, Queen decides to go into his hybrid form, which shows you think Sanji is strong, as this is the first time he goes into this form during the whole entire arc. Once King gets involved in a fight, things do start to turn against Sanji. Marco, who at this point is exhausted, is on the sidelines while Sanji is forced to fight King and Queen at the same time by himself. Sanji says it's too difficult to fight the two at once and is shown laying on his back after a seemingly short amount of time. Sanji then shows he can draw blood from hybrid Queen with a base kick, although Queen was off guard in this instance. Once Zoro is given his Chopper Mink Sensu Bean, he and Sanji are able to attack King and Queen before they can react. While in this 2v2, Sanji mentions his body has been feeling strange since his second use of the raid suit, which warrants a section explaining the German transformation as a whole. An aspect of Sanji's scaling during Onigashima is this German transformation, which is a progressive change as the raid goes on. Sanji says his body has felt strange ever since his second time putting on the raid suit, implying that the transformation at that point had already begun. This is in reference to Sanji using the raid suit to save Momo during the raid, right before his little fight with King. We know that the transformation was changing Sanji's body over time and not instantly, because Black Maria was capable of damaging Sanji with her brass knuckles before Sanji even fought Queen. This means the transformation has been changing Sanji's body ever since about chapter 988. The point of me bringing this up is just to say that until Sanji has his character defining moment against Queen, where it is stated that the itching has finally stopped, Sanji is growing in strength due to this transformation. Now, back to the scaling. Sanji then uses his Diable Jambe to attack Hybrid Queen, which forces him to block with his armament haki. Sanji is then able to swap at Queen's frying pan attack back and forth until he is eventually caught by an attack. Afterwards, Queen uses his Brachio Snakeus to wrap himself around Sanji and break all of his bones. Sanji's exoskeleton by this point has finally activated, which lets him put his body back into place and regenerate. Queen tries to swing a sword at Sanji's neck, only for it to break on contact. Sanji at this point is so durable that basic attacks from Queen won't even work on him. Sanji now mentions that the itching has finally stopped, meaning the transformation has finally been completed. Sanji is able to travel so fast, Queen can't even perceive his movements before he gets hit by Hell's memories. This is Sanji showing even before Ifrit Jambe he was capable of blitzing Queen with his superior speed. Queen reveals he can use all of the Gemma brothers' abilities and attack Sanji with them. Sanji is able to take a Henry Queen and a Winch Queen from him before he can use his super speed to perception blitz him for an extended period of time. Now Sanji, while moving at this incredibly high speed, thinks about his new amp, which includes a durable exoskeleton, enhanced muscle, and super speed. Using these new weapons with his developed armament haki, Sanji creates Ifrit Jambe, which is an even hotter flame than Diable Jambe. Side note on this, but Diable Jambe is stated to increase Sanji's kick speed because of its high temperature, and considering Ifrit Jambe is an upgraded version of the technique, it should also increase his speed even more than the original due to it having a hotter flame. With his new Ifrit Jambe, Sanji hits Queen with a nasty combo before kicking him off of Onigashima entirely. He then passes out from the super speed stamina drain as well as his injuries. To quickly review, Sanji has shown high relativity to Queen even before his German transformation was complete. After it was completed, he was able to perception blitz Queen on 2 separate occasions using his super speed, and was able to defeat him easily after unlocking Ifrit Janbei. Sanji's attacks even before Ifrit Janbei were capable of burning Queen and damaging him to the point where Sanji says that both of them are banged up from their extended fighting. This is the same Queen that Rooftop Zoro said would not be simple to get past, which means Queen could in some way actually challenge Zoro. Considering Sanji was highly relative to Queen before his proper transformation, Ifrit Janbei Sanji should easily be able to combating a base Rooftop Zoro. This doesn't necessarily mean Sanji would beat Rooftop Zoro, but they would at least have to be on a similar scale of power for Sanji to actually challenge him. Especially after getting a tremendous increase from this new transformation, Sanji should at least be on this level. The final thing I want to say about Sanji is that while he's able to perception blitz Queen, it's made clear that this is a different speed than his normal combat speed. Something akin to like a super speed mode. Sanji, even after his German Imp, was shown to get tagged by German Queen not once but twice. Think of this blinding speed as a sort of technique Sanji is able to use in battles for short bursts that drain his stamina, as we see in the Queen say during their fight. Now, we can start to talk about Marco. His portrayal in the series is actually among some of the best we ever see. Upon his first proper appearance, Shanks sees him and tries to get him to join the red-haired pirates. In One Piece Data Book Yellow, this interaction is described as the main commanders of Whitebeard being very attractive to the other emperors. The Viva card actually goes on to say that Marco's popularity and ability are such that he's actually scouted by Shanks, which shows how powerful Marco is. Shanks actually again tries to recruit Marco even during Wano, to which he's turned down again. The main thing about Marco is definitely his devil fruit, the Tori Tori no Mi Model Phoenix. This fruit allows Marco to fully transform into a phoenix or use a hybrid form that combines his base form with the phoenix form. The other ability this fruit gives him is actually his frames of regeneration, which are stated to allow him to revive as many times as he wants no matter what kind of attack he receives. So much so that Oda actually says Marco can regenerate his Anyway, this ability is so strong that the Viva card says it allows Marco to take Admiral level attacks head on and instantly regenerate. There are implications that this healing does have a limit, however these limits aren't exactly expanded upon. Marco has run out of stamina before, so that may be the limit, or it could be in reference to the healing being limited when using it on others. Marco's Phoenix Flames don't actually burn people due to their reviving nature, but they do seem to have the capability of messing with or overpowering normal flames, as shown when Marco clashes with Big Mom. And finally, he's able to shoot out the sort of shockwave flame attacks with his Devil Fruit. And I think that's perfect for rounding out his Devil Fruit. Pretty strong Devil Fruit overall, one of the best in the series. Marco has some good showings at Marineford, such as blocking Kizaru's light attacks and physically overpowering Kizaru mid-air. He's able to kick out Kiji and send him flying, although Aokiji was off guard in this instance. And when Akainu tried to attack Luffy, Marco was capable of stopping Akainu in his tracks. In One Piece Data Book Blue Deep, it is actually stated that Marco fought on par with all the admirals at Marineford, which makes him relative to their performance. The admirals were actually holding back the larger attacks in order not to destroy the island, but it's still really impressive for Marco to be able to react to them and even fight them. Another good piece of portrayal for Marco happens right after the war, where the Gorosei are discussing Blackbeard's new power and possible candidates that are capable of defeating him in this new state. One of which they bring up is Marco and the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, which shows how strongly the world perceives Marco, where he's a figure that can actually be compared to the Yonko. Although we know Blackbeard easily defeats Marco and the remnants, it is still a really good portrayal of his power within the series. Fast forwarding to the raid on Onigashima, Marco meets Big Mom and is able to clash with her using Prometheus. He overpowers Prometheus due to the properties of his Phoenix Flames, and I just want to note that this is probably more of a clash of Prometheus and Marco as opposed to Marco and Big Mom. Afterwards, we see Big Mom grab Marco by his throat, showing she is very much capable of physically overpowering him. Even after this, Big Mom notes that she would have to expend many resources or soul weapons in order to defeat Marco due to his Devil Fruit's regeneration. This is also supported by the Revert card statement of Marco being able to instantly regenerate from Admiral level attacks head on, again showing how broken Marco's fruit is. This is a bit funny, but there's a feat where Marco is actually healing Chopper with his flames, and Zoro and Brook actually misinterpret this as an attack against Chopper, and they try to attack Marco, but he just evades both of them really casually. I thought that was funny, I just wanted to bring it up. While getting Zoro to the roof, Marco grabs both King and Queen by their necks and is able to restrain them. This breaks out into a fight between the two commanders of Marco. We see Marco block King's attack before cutting away, and we cut back to Marco stopping Queen before attacking the allied samurai, making it clear that Marco is protecting them from the commanders. To support this, Marco even says that Queen doesn't even get to think about the samurai before he's actually finished Marco off, again showing Marco is actually protecting the alliance in this instance. Marco dodges Queen's laser before using Bluebird to hit King before he can react before doing a flying knee attack right after. Marco uses Crane Talons to push back a base Queen before remarking that holding back 2 opponents worth $1 billion each is pretty tough. This is really impressive from Marco because not only is Marco fighting 2 commanders, but he's also able to protect the alliance at the same time. Marco at this point is also huffing and puffing, showing he's in an exhausted state, which is also pointed out by Sparrow afterwards. We even see King bleeding from his mouth while Queen has a claw scratch mark on his face. Eventually, Marco runs out of stamina off screen, and we see him sitting on the sidelines exhausted. Despite this exhaustion, Marco's able to fly over to King before he can finish his attack on Zoro and block it, showing a pretty good speed feat. The last thing I want to mention is that Marco was able to block a Boro Breath that was shot at Nami, possibly using the properties of his Phoenix Flames. Now we can compare the two as combatants directly to each other. Sanji and Marco both fought against King Queen at the same time, so you would think it would be a good comparison of their abilities. The only difference between them is that Queen was in hybrid form during Sanji's encounter and not Marco's. We don't see any of the fight in Sanji's case, at least in the manga. Even in the anime, you guys know I'm not fond of using anime for scaling like that. Sanji isn't able to land any hits on King at all, and he's mainly on the defensive against the two, while Marco was so fast that King couldn't even dodge or react to his attack, and he was able to push both opponents back while protecting everyone. Even with the difference in Queen's form, I would still say Marco looks better if we compare the anime version of the fight to the manga, because he was actually on the offensive during that fight. Even after Sanji finishes his Germa transformation, he's still shown like fighting Queen and like getting tagged by him, and he's not like completely overwhelming Queen like with his attacks. The point I'm making is that even after his transformation, Sanji and Queen are still like portrayed to be on like the same level. Well, at least before Sanji uses like his super speed. Now with the super speed, Sanji's capable of blitzing Queen's perception to the point where Queen can't even see him moving around. Something that Marco like just couldn't achieve even on like a base Queen. So that definitely makes Sanji just like much faster than Marco, at least at his top speed. But there's 2 problems with the speed for Sanji. One, it severely drains his stamina the more he uses it, which Queen says in their fight. So it doesn't really make it good in like battles of attrition. We see an Egghead where Sanji uses like his super speed to blitz across the island because he's on like a different floor of the island. He goes save Nami from S-Shark. He's shown like wheezing like shortly after, showing us like a stamina drain for him. The second issue is that we know Marco's capable of regenerating from Admiral level attacks instantly and constantly, just based on like his Viva card databook statements. Sanji's Ifrit Jambe is like incredibly strong. It allowed him to defeat Queen like shortly after he first got it, but it hasn't really shown enough to be on the level of like Kizaru or Akaino's attacks we see at Marineford that we just watch Marco casually regenerate from. Marco should just be capable of outlasting Sanji's super speed based on his showings, and while I believe Sanji's Ifrit Jambe has made him stronger than his previous self that was highly relative with Queen, Marco being able to outspeed King even with the flame on is just a more of an impressive feat. The Viva card again says that King is the second strongest beast pirate after Kaido. Marco is also capable of drawing blood from King in the manga version. He also does the same thing with Zone Form Queen. It was showing how good his offensive capability is. Not to mention that Marco's Phoenix Flames have seemed to be capable of like messing with or outright countering other flames entirely. To summarize, I believe that while Sanji at his best is more powerful and faster than Marco, his stamina would get the better of him, leaving him in a state where he wouldn't be able to compete with Marco in terms of speed. When Marco is using his Phoenix powers to heal the entire Samurai Alliance, or holding off King and Queen while protecting these same samurai, we know he can fight for multiple days on end just based on his past fights with the Raja Pirates in the Odin flashback. Marco also can like constantly regenerate from Sanji's Ifrit Jambe attacks while potentially weakening them with his own flames. Sanji's like regular base state seems to be more on par with Hybrid Queen, as opposed to Marco, who's like outspeeding King. So overall, I think Marco will be the winner of the fight just due to his Axel Dove Fruit and his more like consistent statistics and showings within the story.